The holographic message flickered to life in the middle of the command room, casting an eerie blue glow across the faces of Earth's top military officers. Admiral Park Hyun-woo leaned forward in his chair, his weathered hands gripping the armrests. As the alien symbols twisted and reformed into human language, the translation was clear, cold, and insulting. The Galactic Council demanded that Earth send exactly one ship to their space station for what they called negotiations. But everyone in the room knew what it really meant. It was a summons, command. The kind of message a king sends to a peasant who has forgotten his place. Commander. Lita Hai stood perfectly still beside the Admiral's chair, but her jaw tightened as she read the words floating in the air. She had spent 15 years climbing through the ranks of Earth's space navy. She had seen the secret shipyards hidden on the far side of the moon. She knew what humanity was really capable of. And now, these aliens wanted Earth to crawl to them with a single ship, like a dog called to heel. Correction of your expansionist behavior? Admiral Park read aloud, his voice dripping with disgust. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Around the command center, junior officers exchanged glances. Some looked angry, others looked worried. All of them waited to see what their admiral would do. Park had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. Ever since the first alien probe had been detected at the edge of the solar system, he had known this day would come. The galaxy was full of old, powerful civilizations who had divided up space between themselves millions of years ago. They did. Not like newcomers. They especially did not like newcomers who built colonies and claimed territory without asking permission first. The Admiral stood up slowly, his tall frame casting a shadow across the holographic message. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and scars on his hands from his early days as a fighter pilot. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion, commanded ships in the asteroid belt, watched Earth grow from a single world into a sprawling interstellar empire. He was not about to let some alien council treat humanity like children. They want one ship, he said quietly. His voice was calm, but everyone who knew him recognized the dangerous tone. Commander Lee, what is the current status of our fleets? Consulted her tablet, though she already knew the numbers by heart. Admiral, we currently have 2,417 combat vessels operational across all sectors. The 3rd Fleet is conducting exercises near Jupiter. The 7th Fleet is patrolling the outer colonies. The Home Fleet is defending Earth orbit. And how many ships did the Council request? 1, sir. Admiral Park smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted prey. He turned to face the dozen officers gathered around the command table. These were the men and women who would carry out his orders across the solar system and beyond. Signal all fleet commanders, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Operation Overwhelming Response is now active. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Officers sprang into action, their fingers flying over control panels and communication devices. Red lights began flashing as secure channels opened to ships scattered across human space. The quiet hum of the command center became a symphony. A virgin activity, Commander Lee stepped closer to the Admiral. Sir, are you certain about this? The Council will see it as an act of aggression? Park turned to look at her, his eyes hard as steel. Commander, they've already committed the first act of aggression by summoning us like servants. They want to see what kind of species they are dealing with. I intend to show them. Across the room, Lieutenant Kim was coordinating with the shipyards, orbiting Mars. His voice was steady as he relayed orders to prepare the battle fleet for immediate deployment. At another station, Captain Yu was speaking with the commanders of the outer patrol fleets, calling them home for the largest gathering of human military power in history. The Admiral walked to the main viewing screen, where a map of human space showed the positions of every ship in the fleet. Green dots represented vessels already moving toward the rendezvous point. Yellow dots showed ships preparing to depart. Soon they would all be green. Dahai, he said without turning around, send a reply to the Galactic Council. Tell them we accept their invitation. Tell them we will send one ship to their station. Exactly as requested. The commander's fingers paused over her keyboard. Just that, sir. Just that. Let them think we are being obedient. Let them prepare their little ceremony where they plan to humiliate humanity in front of the galaxy. They ask for one ship. He turned back to face the room where his officers were coordinating the movement of the largest armada ever assembled. They never specified which one. Captain Kim Min-ho was drinking his morning coffee when the message arrived. The bridge of the Eternal Vigilance was quiet in the early hours, with only the night shift on duty as the massive cruiser patrolled the edge of human space. The encrypted signal came through the secure military channel, marked with the highest priority. Codes. Kim set down his cup and activated his personal reader. The orders were simple, but shocking. All ships were to abandon their current missions and head immediately to a secret rendezvous point near Saturn. No explanations were given, but Kim had been in the Navy long enough to recognize the signs. This was not a drill. He looked around his bridge at the men and women under his command. They were good people, all of them. Young Lieutenant Park was monitoring the sensor readings. Senior Sergeant Lee was checking the weapon systems. They trusted him to keep them alive, and he had never let them down. But now he was about to lead them into something that could change everything. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's communication system. We have received new orders from Earth Command. Set course for the Saturn system, maximum speed. This is not a drill. The bridge came alive as his crew jumped into action. They did not ask questions. They had trained for years to follow orders without hesitation. But Kim could see the curiosity in their eyes. What could be so important that their ship was being called away from protecting the outer colonies? 3 systems away, the giant dreadnought Thunder of Earth was preparing to leave its orbit around the moon. Captain Yoon Jae-sung stood on his bridge and watched as smaller ships moved into formation around his vessel. The Thunder of Earth was the largest warship humanity had ever built, armed with enough weapons to destroy an entire fleet. It rarely left the safety of the home system. The ship's engines roared to life, pushing the massive vessel away from Luna and toward the outer planets. Behind it, a dozen destroyers followed like hunting dogs trailing their master. Each destroyer was a deadly weapon in its own right, but together they formed a wall of firepower that few enemies could survive. On the intelligence ship, Silent Arrow, Lieutenant Commander Choi Soo-jin watched the screens that showed ship movements across human space. Her vessel was much smaller than the others, built for speed and stealth rather than direct combat. But it carried the most advanced sensors in the fleet, able to detect enemy movements from incredible distances. Soo-jin had been tracking alien activity for months. She knew that several alien species had placed spy stations at the edge of human territory, watching everything they did. These stations reported back to the Galactic Council, keeping the aliens informed about human military capabilities, or at least what they thought they knew about human capabilities. Ma'am, called out sensor operator Han from his station. I'm reading massive fleet movements throughout our space. Ships are converging from every sector. Soo-jin nodded. He had expected this. The encrypted orders had gone out to every ship in the human fleet, calling them home for the largest gathering in their history. What surprised her was how quickly the ships were responding. Captains who had been patrolling distant star systems were abandoning their posts and racing toward the rendezvous point. What about the alien monitoring stations? She asked. Han checked his readings carefully. They're tracking our movements, but their activity levels remain normal. No increase in communications traffic, no signs of alarm. This made Soo-jin smile coldly. Oh. The aliens thought they understood humanity. They'd watched human ships for years, cataloging their capabilities and reporting back to their masters. But they had never seen the full strength of the human fleet. They had no idea how many ships Earth had built in secret, hidden in asteroid belts and behind the gas giants where alien sensors could not detect them. The Silent Arrow changed course, joining the growing stream of vessels heading toward Saturn. Around them, the space lanes filled with ships of every size and type. Massive carriers launched squadrons of fighters. Supply ships loaded with ammunition and fuel raced to keep up with the warships. Even civilian vessels volunteered to join the fleet, their crews eager to serve their species in whatever was coming. Captain Kim watched his tactical display as more and more ships appeared on the screen. He had served in the human navy for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. Ships that he thought existed only in classified reports were joining the formation. Experimental vessels that most captains had never heard of emerged from hidden bases. The aliens had made a mistake. They had assumed that humanity was like the other young species they had encountered over the centuries, weak, divided, and easily intimidated. They had sent their arrogant message expecting Earth to respond like a frightened child, sending a single ship to beg for mercy. Instead, they were about to face the full might of human civilization. Every ship that had been built in secret, every weapon that had been tested in hidden facilities, every captain and crew member who had sworn to defend their species against any threat. The gathering storm was moving toward its target, and the aliens still had no idea what was coming for them. Station Kepler 7 floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower, its long arms reaching out into the void. The station was huge, big enough to hold 1 million beings from dozens of different alien species. It had been built to impress visitors, to show them the power and wealth of the Galactic Council. Today, it was supposed to witness the humiliation of humanity in the station's main council chamber. Representatives from 23 different alien species sat in their assigned seats. Some looked like giant insects with multiple arms and glowing eyes. Others resembled walking trees with bark like skin and leaves instead of hair. A few were so strange that human minds would struggle to understand their shape at all. They were all very old species. Their civilizations had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, long before humans had even learned to make fire. They had seen countless young races try to challenge the established order. All of them had been crushed or absorbed into the Council's empire. Today was supposed to be no different. Council leader Vexera, a being that looked like a cross between a snake and a bird, checked the time display on her console. The humans were punctual. She had to give them that. Their single ship should arrive any moment now, ready to receive whatever punishment the Council decided to give them. "Begin recording," she announced to the chamber. "Let this serve as another lesson to any species that thinks it can defy the natural order of the galaxy." The station's sensors detected the approach of the human vessel right on schedule. A single ship, just as requested. The automated systems began their routine preparations for docking and prisoner transfer. Everything was going exactly as planned, Captain. Yoon Jaemin sat in the captain's chair of the destroyer, Swift Justice, as his ship dropped out of hyperspace. Around him, his bridge crew worked calmly at their stations, but he could feel the tension in the air. They all knew they were not alone out here. They all knew what was coming next. "Captain," reported his sensor officer, "we have arrived at the target coordinates. Station Kepler 7 is directly ahead." "Very good," Yoon replied. "Open a channel to the station. Let them know we have arrived as requested." The alien station was massive, much larger than anything humans had built. Its sensors were already scanning. The Swift Justice cataloging its weapons and defenses. The aliens probably thought they had learned everything they needed to know about human technology from this one ship. They were about to discover how wrong they were. On the station, the duty officer confirmed the arrival of the human vessel. "Council leader, the primitive ship has arrived. It appears to be a small warship, lightly armed. It's nothing that poses any threat to our defenses." Vexthera nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent. Begin docking procedures. Have security teams ready to escort the humans to the holding cells." But then something unexpected happened. The station's sensors detected another ship dropping out of hyperspace. Then another, then another. At first, the alien technicians thought it was a sensor malfunction. But the readings were clear and getting stronger by the second. More human ships were arriving, far more than anyone had expected. Captain Yoon watched his tactical display as the rest of the human fleet began to appear around him. First came the other destroyers, sleek and deadly. Then the cruisers, bristling with weapons. Then the massive dreadnoughts, each one large enough to take on an entire alien fleet by itself. The space around, Station Kepler 7 filled with human warships. They appeared in perfect formation, as if this massive deployment had been planned and practiced for years, because it had been. On the station, panic began to spread through the council chamber. The alien representatives stared at their viewing screens in shock as more and more human ships materialized out of hyperspace. The sky around their station had become a wall of angular metal and glowing engines. "How many ships are there?" demanded Council Leader Vexthara, her voice rising in pitch. The sensor technician's hand shook as he checked his readings again and again. "Count over 2,000 vessels. Council Leader, and more are still arriving." The chamber fell silent, except for the sound of breathing and the hum of the station's life support systems. 2,000 ships. The combined fleets of the entire Galactic Council barely numbered half that many vessels. And these were not the primitive craft they had expected. These were warships built for serious combat, armed with weapons the aliens had never seen before. Admiral Park's voice cut through the emergency, communications flooding the station's channels. His words were calm and polite, but they carried the weight of absolute authority. "Galactic Council, this is Admiral Park Hyun-woo of the Terran Federation. You requested that Earth send one ship for negotiations. I have brought our delegation." The camera feeds from the station's external sensors showed the incredible sight. Human warships stretched as far as the eye could see, their formation perfect and their weapons powered. It was the largest military force assembled in galactic history, and it had appeared in response to what the Council had thought was a simple summons to a destumpled summons to primitive species. The message was clear. The rules of the galaxy had just changed, and humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist. The great doors of the council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. An Ambassador Omyong walked inside with steady, confident steps. Behind her came 4 other human diplomats, all dressed in simple but elegant blue, uniforms that marked them as representatives of Earth. They moved like people who knew exactly where they belonged, not like prisoners being brought before their judges. The chamber itself was designed to intimidate. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were covered with symbols representing thousands of years of galactic civilization. 23 different alien species sat in elevated seats arranged in a circle, looking down at the humans, like gods judging mortals. This room had seen the surrender of countless young races over the millennia, but today felt different. Today, the aliens sat a little straighter in their chairs. Today, their eyes kept glancing toward the viewing screens that showed the human fleet still waiting outside. 2,000 warships had a way of changing the atmosphere of any negotiation. Ambassador O took her place at the speaker's podium in the center of the chamber. She was 42 years old, with graying hair and the kind of calm demeanor that came from years of dealing with difficult situations. She had negotiated trade agreements between Mars and Earth. She had helped settle disputes between the asteroid mining colonies, but nothing in her career had prepared her for this moment. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each alien representative in turn. Some looked angry. Others looked frightened. A few seemed curious about what this human would say. All of them were listening very carefully. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation devices that would convert her words into dozens of alien languages. "We thank you for this opportunity to speak." Council Leader Vexthara shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She was not used to hearing polite words from species that were supposed to be begging for mercy. The human woman spoke like an equal, not like a prisoner. "Earth comes before you today, not as a supplicant, but as a civilization ready to take its place among the galactic community," O continued. "We seek recognition of our territorial claims, equal representation in galactic affairs, and an end to the condescending treatment that has been shown to emerging species." The chamber erupted in whispers and alien sounds that served as their equivalent of gasps. For thousands of years, young species had come before this council to beg for permission to exist. They offered tribute, accepted limitations on their growth, and gratefully accepted whatever scraps of territory the council chose to give them. This human was making demands. Elder Counselor Mordock, K., a creature that looked like a walking crystal formation, leaned forward in his seat. "You speak of territorial claims," he said, his voice like grinding stone. By what right do you claim systems that were part of the galactic commons long before your species learned to leave their home world? O smiled politely. By the same right that every species in this chamber used when they were expanding into the galaxy. The right of intelligent beings to spread among the stars and build homes for their children. Unless, of course, the Council wishes to argue that only certain species deserve that right. More whispers filled the chamber. The human had just accused the Council of discrimination, and done it so politely that it was hard to take offense. But the accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Behind the scenes, intelligence reports were flooding the Council members' private communication channels. Spy networks that had been watching human space for decades were finally reporting what they had really seen. This was not just a fleet that had been quickly assembled for this meeting. These ships showed evidence of decades of planning and construction. The humans had not just built warships. They had built entire industrial complexes hidden behind gas giants and inside asteroid belts. They had developed new technologies that the Council's scientists were still trying to understand. Most shocking of all, they had done it all while appearing to be a simple, primitive species just learning to explore space. Council Leader Vexera received a private message on her personal communicator. The intelligence summary was brief but terrifying. Human industrial capacity appeared to be at least 10 times larger than their previous estimates. Their technology was more advanced than expected. Their military doctrines suggested they had been preparing specifically for a confrontation with the Council. She looked up at the human ambassador, who was still speaking calmly about trade routes and diplomatic protocols. This woman represented a species that had been planning this moment for decades. They had built their strength in secret, waited for the Council to make the first move, and then revealed their true power at the perfect moment. Your delegation has made its point quite effectively, Vexera said, interrupting the ambassador's speech. Perhaps it is time we discuss terms of mutual respect rather than the ... correction we had originally planned. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was backing down from a confrontation with a young species. The balance of power that had remained unchanged for millions of years was shifting right before their eyes. Ambassador O nodded graciously. We would welcome such a discussion, Council Leader. Earth has always preferred cooperation to conflict. Outside the station, 2,000 human warships continued their silent patrol. A constant reminder that cooperation was definitely the wiser choice. Captain Song Hae-won stood on the bridge of her cruiser, steadfast resolve, and watched the tactical display show the positions of over 2,000 human warships. For 3 weeks now, the entire fleet had remained in the Kepler-7 system. Not as prisoners or beggars, but as the new power in the galaxy. Today, they were finally going home. But Admiral Park was not quite finished making his point. The fleet had spent the last week conducting what he politely called routine training exercises. Every day, human ships practiced attack formations, tested their weapon systems, demonstrated combat maneuvers that no alien species had ever seen before. The aliens watched everything. Their spy satellites recorded every movement, every weapon test, every tactical display. Intelligence reports flowed back to dozens of homeworlds carrying detailed analysis of human military capabilities. The message was clear. This was not just a large fleet, but a highly trained and extremely dangerous military force. Song checked her chronometer. In 30 minutes, the first wave of ships would begin the jump back to human space. Her cruiser was scheduled to depart with the second wave, giving her time to complete the final intelligence reports that would be studied by Earth's military commanders for years to come. Captain called out her communications officer, Lieutenant Park. We're receiving departure clearance from the flagship. Acknowledged, Song replied. She activated her personal log recorder, a habit she had maintained throughout her 15 years of military service. Final entry from the Kepler-7 system. Mission accomplished. The galaxy now understands that humanity will not be dismissed or ignored. She paused the recording and looked around her bridge. Her crew had performed perfectly during their weeks in alien space, had maintained discipline, followed orders, and helped project the image of a professional military force that could not be intimidated. They deserved to be proud of what they had accomplished. 3 decks below. In the ship's intelligence section, Lieutenant Commander Kim was compiling the final analysis of alien reactions to the human fleet. The results were better than anyone had dared hope. Fear, respect, and a sudden eagerness to negotiate had replaced the arrogance and contempt that had characterized alien attitudes toward humanity. Back on Station Kepler 7, the changes were already visible. The Galactic Council chamber had been reconstructed to include a new seat, prominently placed and marked with Earth's blue and green insignia. The Council's charter had been rewritten to recognize the Terran Federation as a full member with equal voting rights. More importantly, the tone of alien communications had changed completely. Where once they had sent demands and ultimatums, they now sent carefully worded requests and diplomatic proposals. The same species that had summoned Earth to answer for its expansionist behavior were now asking permission to establish trade relations with human colonies. Council Leader Vexthura sat in her private office, reviewing the intelligence reports. That painted a disturbing picture of human capabilities. The species she had dismissed as primitive had been planning this confrontation for decades. They had built an industrial base that rivaled the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Their military technology was advanced enough to challenge the established order. Worst of all, they had done it all in secret. While the Council's spy networks thought they were watching a young species struggling to explore space, the humans had been building the largest war machine in galactic history. The implications were terrifying. Humanity could hide such capabilities? What else were they capable of? Admiral Park's final transmission to the fleet came through on all military channels. His voice was calm and professional, but every captain and crew member could hear the satisfaction behind his words. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Our mission here is complete. The galaxy has been reminded that respect is earned, not given. Begin departure sequence according to your scheduled times. It's been an honor to serve with you all. The first wave of ships began to shimmer and disappear as their hyperspace drives activated. The massive dreadnoughts went first, their departure marking the end of the largest show of force in galactic history. Then came the cruisers and destroyers, each one a reminder of human military power. Captain Song watched her tactical display as the fleet slowly dispersed. Ships that had come from every corner of human space were now returning to their patrol routes and defensive positions. But the galaxy they were returning to was different from the one they had left. The balance of power had shifted permanently. Her communications officer looked up from his console. Captain, we're receiving priority messages from Earth Command. Apparently, 17 different alien species have requested formal diplomatic meetings with humanity. Song smiled. The intimidation tactics that had worked on countless young races for millions of years had backfired spectacularly when used on humanity. Instead of crushing human ambitions, the Galactic Council had provoked a response that changed everything. As her ship prepared for the jump to hyperspace, Song recorded her final thoughts on the mission. They asked for one ship to put us in our place. Admiral Park sent them all our ships to show them theirs. The age of human expansion has truly begun. The steadfast resolve vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species from Earth.